it's your girl, Deja, and the host of Black and Wild, the podcast. Happy Women's History Month. In honor of that, I will be highlighting women's stories, experiences, and voices this month. To kick things off, this episode features a good friend of mine and an all-around badass woman. I've had so many conversations with my female friends about the pressures from society to look or act a certain way. Those pressures are especially heightened in the outdoor community, where if you don't have a certain appearance, then you may not be taken as seriously. In this conversation with Nikki, we talk about topics such as body positivity, ADHD, mental health, and one's overall well-being. Nikki is an adult educator, an outdoor enthusiast, aka dirtbag, and a true ally to all. Like many of my guests, I'm sure there will be parts of Nikki's story that resonates with you. Get ready to laugh, smile hard, and be inspired to love yourself fiercely. Let's get into the episode.
Oh, I hope this is healing.
I think so. And my real mission for this is to introduce this concept that I think a lot of people don't realize, which is we're recording? Okay, because this is about to be good.
I was thinking, I think I'm recording because I think I might use this later.
Here. It's about to be good. No, my main goal for this is to show people that we all have these parts of us that are kind of uncomfortable to talk about because they're parts of us, but they're very personal parts of us. And through listening to your other podcasts, it's there are different points. I don't know what it's like to be a person of color in the outdoors, but I know what it's like to have people look at you like you don't belong there.
Right.
And that point of connection, I think, is something that's really important. And people often put things in boxes, I can't relate to this because I don't check that box. But just because you check a different box doesn't mean the root feeling isn't the same. And I think that we should allow those things to connect us. Exactly. And so that's my big goal.
Yeah.
Since you've asked me to do this, is find those points of connection and help other people find those as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally agree. And that's definitely why I wanted to have you on too. As there's a lot of parts of your story that many of us who have felt different or othered can relate to. And that's the thing. We all have a lot more in common than I think we even realize. But
yeah.
All right. I feel like we're going to pause there because we're going to start getting into it. And I don't want to take away from our intro.
Can you also tell me, before we get too deep into it,
Nikki, hello.
Hi, Deja.
Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. I'm honestly so honored that you're open to sharing your story on using my platform to just be able to highlight some of the issues that we've seen in the outdoors and what your experience has been. But before we get into all of that, I'd love you to introduce yourself, who you are, and what you would like to share, if you want to share your pronouns, and then anything that relates to the themes of the podcast, and also how we know each other.
Okay. Well, the last one is easiest to answer first because we are sitting underneath this beautiful arch. That last time you and I were both under this arch, you were legally binding me to my husband. And so that feels really special to use this structure again in this way. And my name is Nikki Ray Hart, and I am an adult education teacher. I am bilingual in English and Spanish, although I'm always careful to point out that being fluent is not the same thing as being accurate. So I can fully get by in Spanish language conversations. Just don't ask me to conjugate anything in the future tense. And then, let's see, what else? I've actually been in, is now the time for the outdoors question, or is that the second one?
You can do it now.
Yes. Okay. I've been in and out of the outdoors for a really long time, actually, for my whole life. The first backpacking trip I remember, I was around 8 or 9 with my dad, but there are pictures of us going backpacking when I was 3 years old. And I have like a little Barney backpack on, and I've got like, there's a picture where like the Barney backpack's on. I have one foot like in the air. I'm like classically ready to go. And meanwhile, my dad's behind me hoisting this giant external frame backpack, which by the way, like had one of those toilet seats like stuck to it, because it was like one of those toilet seats that had the like crossbars. And because I couldn't squat and pee at 3 years old, apparently. So I've been in outdoor spaces for a really long time, but made it like more of a lifestyle choice in my mid-20s as opposed to just something I did from time to time. I think that's a lot of the questions.
Okay.
I find myself very nervous.
Well, I do want to, I guess, rewind a little bit, going how we even got to me officiating your wedding. And that is, we met, and this connects to, I think, when you really took that leap of not only leaving your home, but also changing your whole lifestyle, I think, without realizing that it was going to change the trajectory of your life. But we know each other because you're good friends with my husband, Joe. Shout out to Joe.
Joe.
Man with Joe. And yeah, you guys met because you guys were working in Yosemite around the same time in summer 2015. And then years later, I met you once I started dating Joe in summer 2018. And I'll never forget, Joe speaking very highly of you and just sharing how close of a friend you guys had been. And especially having both moved from Yosemite National Park, specifically Yosemite Valley, to the Eastern Sierra, Mammoth Lakes area. And then continuing that friendship, and you being kind of like that anchor for him here, and being a really like trusted friend throughout the years. And then through the pandemic, you and our friendship developed over time. And I won't redo the speech that I gave at your wedding. I was thinking, like, I should have pulled that up. But
yeah, she still have those cards.
I do. I'm like, I'm gonna scrapbook these
Cut
one
out
day.
the parts about Edward. He's not in this podcast.
Yeah. It's not about Edward today, but shout out to Edward.
Yeah.
But
maybe
yeah,
someday.
and then through that we've developed our own friendship, and I mean, I'd like to say that we're probably closer than you and Joe are now, which is kind of
we definitely hang out more than Joe and I do. Yeah. So I guess if we're gonna like, I'm trying to decide if I want to rewind and go like forward, if I would just want to work backwards.
I mean, I think whatever makes sense. The next question is like, what has your experience been like in public lands and the outdoors? And I think you kind of gave us the background of like what led up to that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll probably still keep diving into your upbringing and childhood and maybe how some of that might have influenced you. But I think it makes the most sense. You kind of we left off where you said you made the choice to move somewhere where you're going to be spending more time in the outdoors and making that more a part of your life. So we can pick up with that. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah. But before, just because I have ADHD, this is going to really suck for you editing. I'm really sorry.
I was like, we're going to be all over the place. It's fine.
But when you mentioned like me being an anchor to Joe, that was very, very mutual. Moving out here, I think, because you've had people from Yosemite on your podcast before. You had Jane, like other people with experience in Yosemite, and anyone who's lived in Yosemite knows that that's a very particular lifestyle choice that affords you a lot of freedom, a lot of exploration in the mountains. But at some point, some of us feel really pulled to have our own bathrooms. And then we moved to the Eastern Sierra so that we can still play in the mountains, but like have our own bathroom and kitchen and not have to share. Yeah. And making that transition is really interesting because I was in a place where like I wanted to make that transition and to really put down some roots and to do some different things with my life. And not everybody who comes out to the east side from Yosemite is similar. And I feel like Joe was very similar in that he was working so hard on his photography, like all of these things, he was really putting down roots. And so to share that with him was really awesome, because it kind of like when you leave Yosemite and you want to start putting down roots, you're almost like the oddball then. Just in the same way that you're the oddball when you go to Yosemite. But so it's been very nice to like go through that transition with someone else, because then you don't feel so alone.
That's interesting you say that, because it does seem like, as you were saying that, I was reflecting on just a lot of shared experiences you guys had without realizing you guys were doing things at similar times. Like we always joke too that you both kind of started to mature and like really settle down as far as what your lifestyle was like in Yosemite, your social life specifically. And that kind of happened around the same time. And then you both started dating your partners around the same time. And I feel like, what did we get engaged like a year apart?
I think we did everything. Like you and Joe started dating, and then a certain amount of months later, Edward and I started dating.
Yeah.
And then you and Joe got engaged, and then like that same amount of months later, Edward and I got engaged. And then you and Joe got married, and then that same amount of months later, like we've really just been following this whole time.
Almost. That's so funny.
It's been really nice to share that because as you and I have talked about since, like nobody, like they kind of like make it comedic in media what it's like to be a bride, and like there's the tropes like the bridezilla, the stress, but like people don't really know what it's like to be a bride and all of the like, yes, the tropey parts of it, but also the beautiful parts about it, and also like the stressful and sometimes hurtful parts that people don't talk about. And to be able to go through that, you and I together, and like to have that shared experience, it was very similar to like moving here and sharing that with Joe. Because like I was able to share like that, you know, nothing shows you who your true friends are like when you're a bride. Like you learn who is going to jump on that grenade for you. Like you learn who is going to be the person behind the scenes, like hanging all the lights, doing all the things. And you learn who is like going to give you exactly what you need. You learn who's going to like take care of the things that, so you don't even have to see them.
Yeah.
And it's also very inspirational. Like going through that, you realize that you want to be like that kind of person for certain people in your life. And it's an experience that has given me a lot of gratitude.
Yeah. I think, you know, there's a lot of shared experiences we had because it's so tricky transitioning from Yosemite back into like the real world.
The real
and like,
world
going through that together. Like you and Joe were living out of your cars for a while at the same time.
Yes.
And had that as a shared experience and could relate to. And then also, like, you know, having to make those modifications to make that comfortable for you too. I know Joe had said he got definitely some ideas from you of like what you had done in your van. And then also to finding a place to live and then surviving the pandemic together.
Yeah.
You know,
and Joe are like
you
the
guys
two people we actually saw that entire year.
You were our other like safe space.
Yeah.
Where we knew you guys were following similar. You hear that from a lot of other people too, that the people they spent a lot of time with during the pandemic were people who are also following similar, you know, protocols that they were, and they felt safe with those people. So I really appreciate that about you guys. But I wanted to jump back and can you remind me how old were you when you moved to Yosemite?
Yeah, so that's the rewinding I wanted to do. So here we go. Now back to the beginning. Yeah, so I moved to Yosemite in May of 2012.
Okay.
I would have been 21 or 22. I was 22.
Really young.
Yeah, so I was really young. I had gone through a really gnarly experience where I'm from in Tennessee, which, like, you know, of course now seems like trivial, but at the time it was just like heart-wrenching. I think like my boyfriend had broken up with me and shown a preference for my best friend at the time. And that just like just really and I had some other stuff going on like that made that a lot harder. And so I pretty much like lit a match and blew up my life. I like fully like I was not fully well in terms of like mental health, and so I did a lot of things and definitely hurt a few people and needed like to drastically change what I was doing. And I had actually in January of that year I had attempted to end my life. And in that healing process, I remember I was like sitting in my parents' living room with my dad watching a show about like people who worked concessions in Yellowstone who were eaten by grizzly bears. And my dad said, you know, I always wanted to do that. And I was like, what? He was like, no, like, I always wanted to go work in national parks. Like, he expressed that he had always wanted to do that when he was younger and regretted that that wasn't something he did. And so when I was like in this place where I really needed a drastic change and I really needed to wake up, I started applying for different national parks. I applied for like Yosemite, Yellowstone, the Badlands, which I had never heard of. I think Acadia, a few different ones.
Wow.
And then it turned out that the CEO of DNC at Yosemite at the time had the same last name that I used to have.
Wow.
And so they thought that I was his niece.
Nice.
And they hired me like in days. Like, I think I did like one interview that was very clearly a formality. I remember like being so nervous for the interview, and I'm like getting ready. I'm like, practicing all these different things. What am I going to say? And it was like really like, it was less than 5 minutes. It was like I benefited from a nepotism I didn't even know about. And so since they called back first, I went there. I got on a Greyhound bus. It took 4 days, but I saved $30. It was cheaper, $30 cheaper to take the bus than fly.
Wow. Well, $30 cheaper. Like, saving $30 at 22 is like a game changer between a meal and not having a meal, or the littlest things.
That $30 bought me a pizza when I got to Merced. Nice. Which at the time I called Merced, because if any of your listeners are from the Southeast, you know that we just like to squish all our words together. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take a bus to Merced and then I'm going to go into Yosemite. But I held on to that $30. I bought myself like a Domino's pizza and wings when I got to that hotel. And I remember that was the first time I ever took a shower where like the water coming off of me was a different color, because I was so disgusting from being on a Greyhound bus for 4.5 days. And like at one brief point, like the bus got stalled and I had to like sleep on the floor in a terminal in Arizona somewhere. And it's certainly not been the last time. Like now I've just gone out in the mountains and gotten absolutely filthy. But I remember that, like feeling really proud and also terrified, like latching all the things on my hotel. It was like the first time I'd ever been in a hotel by myself, desperately watching the Domino's like tracker going. And so then I was like, okay, the next person to knock is probably a Domino's guy. I can open the door. I went to the vending machine. I remember to get like a Pepsi, and I was like going along the wall. Like,
was that the farthest you'd been from home by yourself?
Yes, absolutely. The farthest I'd ever been by myself.
Crazy.
And I grew up in an area in Tennessee where we're taught to be very scared, like very scared. I grew up in a very homogenous area, and it pretends to be very open-minded, but you can only be so open-minded when everybody around you looks like you. Mm-hmm. And then when you're in other areas where you're with a bunch of diverse people, like your brain almost goes into this fight or flight, because you've been told to be tolerant, but you've also been told to be scared, be very scared, protect your stuff, protect yourself. Like there's danger lurking behind every corner, like in any neighborhood that doesn't have like street lamps. I don't know. And so it was very scary. But then I got on the Yards bus the following day after the bravery of ordering that Domino's pizza. And then it's funny, I like looked back on those pictures recently. I took like 150 pictures on the Yards bus out the window between Merced and the valley. And they're like the hills of Mariposa, which are beautiful in their own right, but like through a grainy bus window, it seemed important at the time. So then I was in Yosemite, and it was the first time in my life that I felt like I belonged, because even though I'm just talking about like growing up in this homogenous area, everybody looks like me, I always felt different than everybody. I always felt like, I grew up as a kid with ADHD, and like in the 90s when ADHD was not understood. It was not understood in little girls. And that honestly led to a lot of the mental health issues that I was having in Tennessee. And that's part of why I left, because I remember talking to my little sister. She was the first person I told I wanted to leave. And I told her, I was like, it's go or die. Like, I do not belong here. I don't want to be here.
Right.
But I don't think I'm saying I don't want to be here like I don't want to be alive. I mean, like, I don't want to be in Tennessee. This isn't the right place for me.
Right.
And not to talk smack on Tennessee, it's a beautiful state, but like, it is not the right place for me. And then when I went to Yosemite, like, everybody's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Everybody's like their own special flavor of weirdo. And they, like, in Yosemite, everybody just wants to, like, be happy and pause time and just frolic. And that was so healing. And like, and also, as I've since discovered, like, being outdoors and being in the mountains is fantastic for people with ADHD. And so it's like, doing all of these things outdoors really allowed me to, like, manage my ADHD. So like, it wasn't the first thing that people knew about me. That it was more of like a part of me. And it allowed me to, like, see things more clearly, because this part that really just controlled my every action, my every impulse, my every perception was now something that was manageable. And so I did, I think 3 years in Yosemite, maybe 3.5. I worked at the village store for a long time. And then I kind of switched into alternating. I would go to Badger Pass as a lift operator in the winter.
Nice.
Still kind of blows my mind that I do that, especially as you know, I've come to realize I hate skiing.
I was just thinking that. I was like,
I loved being a lift operator at Badger. But do not like to ski. I just do not like it.
But you love snowshoeing?
I love to
you
snowshoe.
Still love the snow. You
I
just
love
don't
the
want to
snow.
do experience in that way.
Yes, I love the snow. I love snowshoeing, but do not ask me to, like, give up that much control. Like, I cannot just, like, strap and be like, pretty sure I'm going to get there. No, I have to be going one foot in front of the other, like, under my own biomechanical steam.
That's fair.
Otherwise, I'm just too scared. But yeah, so I settled into being a lift operator, and then I would go to Tuolumne in the summers. And Tuolumne, in very many ways, was when I really got to know myself. And I love going back and reading my journals from those years in Tuolumne, because, like, I would say things like, I spend time in my head and it's a fabulous place to be. Like, there's a journal entry that I still clearly remember writing. I was hiking from Tuolumne to Vogelsang High Sierra Camp. And I stopped at this rock to, like, have a snack and smoke a cigarette because, well, I was the most active in my life. I was also, like, chain smoking all the time back then. And I was, like, smoking a cigarette, I was writing, and I remember what I wrote without even having to, like, go and read it again. And I remember what it felt like to sit there. And that moment in 2014 was the first time that I was like, I'm a good person who's, like, fun to be around. Like, I like being around myself. I think this is really great. And I think I'm really great. And I am in love with my life. And how beautiful is that? And in the years since, like, so my last season in Tuolumne was 2015, and then I moved out here in January of 2018. And in those interim years, I tried to live in North Carolina. I had my van. I lived in my van for most of that time. And I tried out, like, a bunch of different places, but I just wasn't, nowhere else was home. And the Sierra was home. And I knew I didn't want to go back into Yosemite because, like, I wanted to make some lifestyle changes, and I really wanted my own bathroom. I wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night without having to, like, fully get dressed. And so I did. I settled here in Crowley. The first place I lived was about 2 miles that way. And then eventually we found this house, and we've been in this house for a really long time, since for almost 6 years, I think. So
it's interesting that you use the phrase, the Sierra always felt like home. It was the only place that felt like home, because that really resonated with me. Like, it honestly made me tear up a little, because I remember that was what Yosemite felt like for me. I remember that being the first place that I also liked myself, that I didn't feel like there was something wrong with me, that I didn't feel like different or othered when everywhere else made me feel that way. And, you know, there's other places that I enjoy spending time in, that was the first place that I was like, oh, this feels like this is where I'm supposed to be. And there are so many other people that I've talked to who have lived and worked in Yosemite that have said the same thing, or even other national parks. I've talked to people in Grand Teton, other parks that's their place, you know, and I love that for them. I'm like, I totally see the appeal, but that's what I get when I'm in that place. Like that's my place, and that's the place that makes me feel like my best self. It's given me so much healing, and so I appreciate that you felt the same sentiments without me even like coaxing you to say that. It came out naturally, but I'm really glad to hear that. What were you doing as far as recreating when you got to Yosemite? How did you start getting into the activities that you enjoy doing now? Where did that all begin? Because I mean, I'm assuming you said you did some hiking and backpacking with your dad when you were younger. Did you pick that back up immediately when you got to Yosemite? How did all that get started?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really put it down, but I definitely, it was something that I like did on occasion, like a few times a year. But yeah, like hiking and backpacking are my preferred recreational activities. I tried rock climbing. I don't like that for the same reason I don't like skiing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I just don't like being terrified.
Yeah.
Like of imminent death does not appeal to me.
And trusting the equipment too.
Yes.
Makes me really nervous.
I remember like trying, it was similar to my experience. So like I realized I didn't like skiing when I went skiing with you, because a lot of like, sorry, okay, that sounds bad. Let me explain. Let me explain. Okay. So because, and you and I have discussed this a lot, and you've even discussed it with other people on your podcast, that like there in some outdoor spaces, there's like this competition. How many miles did you do? Like how much vert did you have? Vert makes me want to vomit in my mouth, just the word. But like and like in skiing, like people get the fancy watches or the apps and they're like, I went this fast and I did this, or this pitch was a like 17.9. I don't know anything about climbing pitches. But the and so like I'd never really enjoyed these activities, but I thought it was because I couldn't do them as well as other people. But when I went skiing with you, it was like zero pressure. You did not, like, I've never gone skiing with anybody before who didn't pressure me to do something harder. You were like, we can stay on the greens all day, Nikki. Like, we'll do whatever you want. We also, like, you were my only skiing friend who didn't ski as an excuse to day drink. So, like, we were sober, and you completely let me stay in my comfort level. And I was like, okay, if I still am not having any fun after like being with somebody who's completely like non-judgmental, then this isn't for me. And rock climbing was very much the same. Like I went out with my friends Nico and Leanne, who are like no pressure. They just like to be outside. And I was like 2 feet from the top of something out in the Alabama hills, and I just started sobbing. I was like, I don't want to do this. And I just came down, and they were like, are you okay? I was like, I don't think I ever want to climb a rock again. They were like, that's fine. So it's really, for me, it's like always been hiking, always one foot in front of the other. I think also too, like hiking appeals a little bit more to my ADHD because I can, like, I am not a fast hiker. I am like stopping and looking at every like funky shaped leaf, every cool stick, all the cool bugs. I have this habit, like I actually have on my Instagram like an entire highlight that's like I call bug voyeurism. That's just like pictures I've taken of bugs like doing it out in the mountains. And I always did that, but then when I moved to Yosemite, it was like my lifestyle. Like I had to be walking on a regular basis to feel well. And so it became a more integral part of me. But like it's really, I just like going for a walk. And I remember like I went to Ireland for a little bit in my mid-20s, and I met this really nice woman who was very kind. Like I did a hike, and she like held my stuff for me. I know she was like somebody's dentist sister. And so I like kind of knew her and trusted her, and she like held my stuff. She picked me up at the end of the trail after a few days, and she kept calling it a walk. And
they do that in Europe. It's all just a walk. Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. Like, you know, because we get like this image in our minds of like, I'm going to go for a hike and I'm going to like suit up and I'm going to do all this stuff.
Climb this mountain.
Yeah. Like, and I better have my appropriate gear. It's like at the end of the day, it's just a walk. Yeah. Like a walk in the mountains, a walk in the woods. Like I'll often say now, like when Edward and I go out, my husband and I, and he'll say like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to do a hike? What are you looking at? I was like, sometimes I'll just say, I just want a good meander. That's what I just want. I just want to meander outside.
Mm-hmm.
And we were recently in Santa Rosa with his best man and his partner. And the four of us went out foraging for mushrooms.
Fun.
And it was so much fun because it was just like, we're just going to go outside and meander and like look at cool stuff and like kind of do this little scavenger hunt. And then we made stroganoff with those mushrooms, and that shit was so good. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was really, really good.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. So
Aww.
that's my connection. Is really I just like to walk.
How did you get to that point of realizing, like, okay, I don't mind hiking, but realizing what kind of hiking you like to do and the kind of excursions you like to go on? Because for me, I consider myself a slower hiker. And I also like to stop a lot. And I think that's how a lot of we connected on too, because I like to stop and look at birds or flowers. But what was that like in Yosemite? Because I found that it was kind of hit and miss for me. There were some people who were getting really frustrated with me because I was a lot slower and I would just get left a lot. And then there were other people like Joe who were like, we're just out here together to have a good time. I just want to enjoy being out here with you. I don't care how fast we go or what we end up doing. It's all about being together and enjoying it together. So if this is what you like to do, cool. But what was that like for you when you were first hiking? Because you admit you're slow, but I'm curious if you experienced what I did too, or what yours was like.
Yeah, you say that, and it comes to mind like a very specific hike that I did in Yosemite, going to El Cap and coming down. It was like with somebody that I worked with at the time, who I remember she was lovely. I can't remember her name now. We only had that one summer together. So if you're listening to this and you remember that hike to El Cap, I'm sorry that I can't remember your name, but I remember you and you were lovely. And then there was like some other like friend of hers who had come, and that guy was such a dick. Like, she was lovely, he was a jerk. And we were like coming down, like from the valley floor to El Cap is 18 miles. Well, like there's some discrepancies. It's between 15 and 18
trip?
miles round trip.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yep.
And we were doing it in a day.
Oh.
And then when we're coming down, like I think I was in like, again, like hiking wasn't my lifestyle at this point. I was in some like tennis shoes, like Nike or like general like sport, like stuff you'd get at Dick's Sporting Goods, which is not a plug. It's not where I would recommend getting my hiking shoes. But I like, I didn't have any grip, and we were coming down the Falls Trail, and that thing's pounded by so many feet. It's all sand on top of those smooth rocks, and I was slipping, so I was going really slow. And this guy was just like, like you could hear him, like he'd be waiting like 4 switchbacks down, and I could just hear him be like, ugh. It's like, dude, like, go. I have my own headlamp. I was like, you don't have to wait for me. I never said you had to wait for me. And then that like the feeling like I should go faster made me slip more, which made me go slower. But yeah, the transition of that, I think like there was actually a while where I worked really hard to keep up with it instead of finding my happy medium. And so like there were like those 2 seasons in Tuolumne, I was crushing miles all the time. Wow. And I was like really, really fit. And this is going to tie us into why you asked me on your podcast today. I think
it comes around.
As I got more comfortable with my body, like I think I got right with my mind first, and then it still took me a long time to get right with my body. And as I got more comfortable with my body, I got more comfortable with my pace, because part of me wanting to meet this crazy expectation of what's his face who thought I should go faster, like wanting that acceptance and pushing myself for that, it took a toll. Like there's still some things, like I now have horrendously flat feet, because also while I was doing all those miles, I was doing them barefoot, because I don't know, we were wild animals back then. And that was a terrible idea. And I did like, and there's some, like I still have like issues with my hips. Like I need to be really mindful, because like my body did not want to be pushed the way that I pushed it those few years. And as I got more comfortable with listening to my body, and I got more comfortable with my body, and I realized like the kind of hiking I want to do, I also spent a lot of time alone in my last like year of living in the van. Initially, when I started living in the van, I was with an ex-boyfriend, and then very quickly van life was not for him, and it was for me. So I spent a lot of time alone, and I spent a lot of time alone with myself, and there was nobody to compete with, nobody to impress. And I got as strong as I wanted to get, and as strong as like felt good for me. And I took that feeling right after I like attained that feeling was when I moved to Mammoth, and Joe was like the person that I was connected to in Mammoth, and he was like really in that same kind of place of like, I want to do what I want to do and not what I should do, not what someone else tells me to do. I want to do what I feel good doing.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. And then after I lived here for a couple of years was when I started dating my husband, or a year. And then another year after that, we got pretty serious. And once we were serious and we were like, I remember even when we were just dating, like we went to the Bristle Cones and we were hiking that loop up. It's not Patriarch Loop, it's the other one. And we were hiking that loop. And I remember just like going through and like there were little interp signs, like numbers, but we didn't have like the thing that told us what they were. And so I just was walking around like chattering, like making up some story about like, and this is the place where the aliens landed. and just going on. And I realized like I wasn't going slow. Like we were really there just to be outside, be together, and eat turkey pesto sandwiches. Those were really good. And like, and he is just like, my husband has accepted me in a way that like I didn't know was possible. And in accepting me, he's like, you want to hike slow? We're hiking slow. You want to hike fast? We're hiking fast. And I think Joe is very similar like that with you. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, if my husband wants to go for a brisk walk in the mountains, he knows that he can do that at any time without me. You know, like he can call up Joe, and the two of them can like flick up a mountain in like an hour and a half, and we'll be here with the snacks when they get back.
Yeah.
Like it's not, but like he is. And I remember one of my friends, Emily, she said this to me once when I was like apologizing for being a really slow hiker, and this would have been like 21, I think. And she was like, Nikki, if I wanted like to just crush miles, I could crush miles. I wanted to go for a walk with you. And that's what I'm doing. Like, I don't care about the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I think that sense of community is not something I felt in my 20s. And it is something that's been very prevalent in my 30s. Like in my 20s, it was like, let's go do things for the story. You know, Instagram was like barely a thing when I first moved to Yosemite. And it was like, we were all doing it for the gram. And like, it was, you know, it just was a different thing. Like in my 30s, I don't know if there are very likely still people who are doing it for the crushing it. And I'm not like talking smack on that. Like if that's what makes you feel strong, then do it. Like get it. But don't like make it like that's the marker for being strong. And
or that's the only way to be strong is doing it one way.
Exactly. Like the only way to be a strong and fit hiker is to be thin and athletic and fast. And that is
not true.
Absolutely not the case. And since we're starting to like kiss the subject of why you asked me on here, I want to do a quick vocabulary preference moment. So you asked me, I remember when you asked me to be on your podcast when we were going for that walk on the Mammoth Trail.
Oh yeah.
And that was a nice day. That was a beautiful day. And you were like, you were like shy about asking me. And then you asked me and I like couldn't believe it because I'd been listening to your podcast and did not really fully understand like how I, as a white woman, would fit in with this. And then you're like, you know, you are one of the few people up until this point that I felt comfortable talking about like my body size and the way my body is shaped. And it's not something that I've shared with a lot of people. And like we were talking about this a little bit as before we started recording, about like these words that we think are bad words that really aren't. Like fat is not a bad word, in my opinion. I think it's one of those words where like it sounds like a bad word, but in the same way that people sometimes think like to say someone is black or someone is Mexican is a bad word, like why is that a bad, like it's not a bad word, it's a descriptor. And like if you're not putting this bigoted intent in it, then it's an adjective. And like people deserve to like be their adjectives if they want to be,
Exactly.
They describe themselves however they want. But I do not consider myself as a fat person. And I think like I've spent some time listening to, like, reading about people who are in that space and like do use those descriptors. And I don't quite feel that word applies to me. And because I'm still getting comfortable with this, I've chosen a cute word that I would like us to use, and that is the word chubby. And I want to say it like my nieces say it. Like my nieces say chubby is like, oh, you're so cute, I just want to pinch your cheeks. And that's the word I want to use, because I am definitely not thin. I am not an athletic body type as people mostly think about it. But I don't feel as if I like do fit into the category of people who would use the word fat. And so for the rest of this podcast, we're going to use the word chubby because it makes me smile. And I'm a little nervous to talk about it. So I figured let's go with the word that makes me smile while we do this.
I like that. Yeah. I do. And, again, it's like people place meanings on words, and they can take all kinds of different meanings, and it all depends on the context that we're using them in. And I like that. I mean, I remember some of the earliest things Joe told me about you was like all the cool hikes that you guys would go on together. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, Nikki's so fucking badass. She's so strong. And that inspiring me, because I'm someone who looks like they're athletic, way more, I think, fit than I think that I am, at least. But I'm not, climbing peaks like some people are doing where we live and doing things to the extreme. And I remember talking with my sibling the other day and thinking they thought they didn't like hiking, but then they're like, wait a second. When I think of hiking, I think of people summiting peaks or doing things with a lot of elevation. And like, I like being outside. I like going on walks outside. I don't want to do things to the extreme. And I remember telling them, you don't have to do that. But it took me a long time to realize that too, because it was with all the examples that we've seen or was pushed on us. You see that in so much advertising. It's people who look a certain way. And so if you look a certain way, then that means you're doing certain activities to a certain degree and level. And I remember thinking, like, feeling that pressure because I looked a certain way and people had these expectations of me, but I didn't fit into them. I'm like, I want to experience the outdoors in the way that feels right for me.
Yeah.
And just the things that you were able to achieve, I thought, oh my gosh, there's somebody else, there's another woman who is out here crushing things. And then learning that we also have very similar ways that we like to go about experiencing the outdoors made me feel very seen the more I got to know you. So I really appreciate that. But it's funny that what you've described to me about how you felt in outdoor spaces, and especially in the ways that you like to experience these places. I never looked at you like that, but maybe that's because I just try to take people for who they are and how they are. And if you're telling me you're doing those things, I'm like, heck yeah, that's awesome. Rather than assuming that, oh, you must be lying, or you totally don't have this body type, so you're obviously not doing this to whatever level. It's like, you crush it no matter what you're doing. But I think that definition, there doesn't have to be one finite definition for that word. What does crushing mean or whatever?
Yeah.
But can you tell me a little bit more of because I think like a lot of ways that we look at ourselves comes from the outside, from the world and what people are telling us, like what you were describing about what you felt like when you were younger. And so can you remember where this kind of idea came from? Were people telling you these things when you were outside and looking at you a certain way? Like, what made you think that you might be looked at as somebody who doesn't have a certain body type or physique of someone who recreates outside?
Yeah. I think, so it's really interesting for me because I grew up and I was very, very tiny. And then I hit puberty and I got chubby for the first time. And I dealt with that in a very, very unhealthy way and got back to a very small body type. And then, so pretty much like was always perceived as very small. And then I hit puberty and that changed. And I was just fighting that for so long. And like pretty much since puberty, I've gone through cycles of just my weight yo-yoing up and down by like 30 pounds every 2 to 3 years. And it like that takes a really big toll on the body. And I have now been at the weight that I am now for, I want to say like 4 years or maybe even 5 years. And I've sustained this weight for the longest time, and it's on like the heavier end of the yo-yo. You know, I think there's definitely a part of me that like wanted to stay at the lower end, but I'm not healthy at that stage. And I am healthy where I am now. And it's really funny, like, it's not funny at all. That's a terrible word choice. Like, it's really upsetting because when you are chubby, when you're not an athletic body type, you have, like, I always feel like I have to justify that I'm healthy. And I'm always like, no, you don't understand. I get a physical every year. She draws my blood. My cholesterol's great. Like, I like want to like walk around with like a sheet of my stats. It's like, look at my A1C. I'm a healthy person.
Right.
And that is like the biggest thing, is that people assume that if you are chubby, if you are fat, if you are not thin, that you are not healthy. And that is not true. For many people, myself included, if I was thin, that's unhealthy. And my sister has shared these things with me. We should probably fact check it before you put it on the podcast. And I can ask her for the source. Yeah. I'll ask her for the source, but she told me once that, like, in her research, my sister is very much invested in the healthy at every size movement, that this BMI metric, which you don't need to source check the fact that BMI is a statistical thing. It takes your height and your body weight and comes up with a number. And that was, that's not an indicator of health. Like, I have been getting a yearly physical every year for the last 5 years, and with a physician who has never once mentioned anything to me about weight. And I said I've been at this weight for like 5 years. There's like 1 6-month period where I jumped up like 10 pounds and then like came back down. And like once I came back down, she was like, yeah, I can see like you've lost some weight. How do you feel? And like asking me about that. And like not telling me that I'm unhealthy when I gained those 10 pounds, because like then I have all this blood work. She does all of these other exams. And like it's not just about that number on the scale. And it's just like, and then I remember like one time I was going to a Planned Parenthood in Southern California, because I used to be able to go and get a full year's supply of birth control pills before I had good health insurance. I would go down there because you could get the full year's supply. And, being transient, it's really helpful to not need to go to a pharmacy every month. And so I go in for this birth control, and, they weigh you, they do all the things. And the doctor comes back in the room with my like bag of my prescription and a piece of paper that said, like, it said, you are morbidly obese. Here's what to do about it. Because my BMI isn't morbidly obese.
Wow.
Which I feel like if you think about it, like, and I teach English, so like words and their meanings really matter to me. Morbid means death. Morbidly obese means that you are so fat, it's going to kill you. Which, not to say like that's not a thing, but I refuse to believe that everybody who registers at that level on BMI is so fat that they're going to die from it. And so she comes in with this piece of paper that's recommending things like eat vegetables and go for walks. And I wanted to be like, bitch, we are at sea level right now. I will race you 1 mile right now. Let's go. Like, she was very thin. I didn't actually say that to her, but I was like fuming. And in my head, I was like, let's go. I will destroy you. And then she left the, oh no, she didn't bring in my prescription. She just brought in the paper. Then she left the room to go get the prescription. I flipped over that paper and I like pulled a pin out of my purse. I'm like frantically scrawling. I'm so furious. I'm shaking. And I'm like scrawling. I was like, you don't know me.
Right.
You are somebody I came to like for this one specific prescription. You don't have my medical records and history. You don't have, like, you didn't ask me any questions. You literally only have my height and weight. And then you're going to come back in here with a sheet of paper telling me that I'm so fat it's going to kill me? Like, it really is like, it's still clearly upsetting to me to this day. And I remember like I called my sister, my little sister, and was like fuming to her in the parking lot. And it was just, and it was so demoralizing because, you know, this person was a doctor. Like, she has a medical degree. She is supposed to be the authoritative figure who has this information.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people like me get like, you know, this person in a position of authority tells you that you are so fat you're gonna die, and you're like, oh my god, like, who am I who's done like a couple hours of research online to think that like I know more than this person? And if I didn't have the very solid primary care physician that I did, I think that might have gotten to me more. But because I have a solid primary care physician, I knew that I was healthy. And so I like kind of refused to let that tell me. It still pisses me off clearly, but like I refused to let that tell me I wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
But I have had like all kinds of people think that they are medical experts and tell me what I can or can't do. And these things, like, they stick with you.
Yeah.
And I remember like October 2020, I did go traveling a little bit in my van because that was the year it was really smoky here for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And, you know, people can only see my front door here. There's not much house behind us here. It is one room that my husband and I live in together. And to be stuck inside got really difficult. And we had only been living together for like 3 or 4 months. So we went on separate trips. And I remember it was like in Mesa Verde, and I was doing this like paved walk, and I ran into a couple who had just come from where I was going. And I was asking them these different things, and there was this hike that I had really wanted to do there. Let me get closer to my, sorry.
Okay.
There was a hike that I had really wanted to do there, and the husband said, well, that one you probably shouldn't do. And I was like, why? What's wrong with it? And he was like, well, like, you shouldn't do it in your condition.
What's wrong with me?
I was like, what's my condition? Man I've never met. Like, what's wrong with me? White man who knows all? Please tell me. What?
Please mansplain.
Yeah,
to me.
please mansplain. What's my condition, total stranger? Like, and he was like, well, you are pregnant, aren't you? And the way he like said it, like it was a statement, but also a question, like as if it was something I didn't know. Yeah. I remember him just being like, you know, you shouldn't do this in your condition. And then he said that to me, and I was like stunned. And I remember saying something to him like, no, I'm just fat. And like the look on his face was priceless. Loved that look. Totally not bad. Like I said that, I was like, no, I'm just like been stuck inside for the last year like all of you, you know?
Yeah.
And then they left, and I sat there at this overlook, like looking out over these cliff dwellings, not even able to see these gorgeous cliff dwellings because I'm thinking about what this man said to me. And then all of a sudden I was like filled with a white hot rage, and I was like, fuck this guy. I'm gonna fucking catch up to this guy. He's old. I can catch up to him. Like, I'll get him in his condition, you know, like of age. And so I start like power walking, And also, like, cherry on top to the story, the entire time that this is happening, my cat is actually in a cat carrier backpack on my back.
Wow.
That was tinted because technically pets weren't allowed on the trail. And I told myself, I was like, well, he's not on the trail. Edit this part out of it. But like, I had him, and like, I don't think these people knew that this entire time this is happening, I actually have like a cat on my back. But it brings me joy to think about it now.
It was what, 10 pounds? Was he that big then? He's still
Back
young,
then
huh?
he was probably like 9 pounds. But yeah, he was like, he's a really big cat. And so yeah, so I'm furious, and I just start power walking like I'm gonna catch up to this guy. And I get most of the way to the parking lot, and there's his wife, and she's like standing there waiting for me. And she's like in tears, trying to apologize for her husband and how like he doesn't realize what he said. And I was like, actually, I want to talk to your husband. And I just pushed past her, like didn't push her, I just like pushed like past her on the trail. And
you're recording, so
I was like, so I just walk right by her, and he's like sitting in the car. And I was like, look like you're feeling pretty embarrassed right now. And he was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, I think that you should hold on to this feeling, because what you did was completely out of line. And there are a lot of people of a lot of shapes and sizes. And, I think you should hold on to this feeling and remember it next time you want to tell somebody what they can and can't do.
wow.
And there's like, and then I also recommended, one of the things that really helped me come to terms with myself and my body type was the Instagram account Unlikely Hikers.
Oh yeah.
Which was super active in the pandemic, and she's still pretty active, but like not quite as much. And like, that was such an influence for me. And I remember telling him, look up on, like, he was like in his 70s. This man was not looking up Unlikely Hikers on Instagram, but I was still like telling him, I was like, you look it up, and like, you will see that like all types of bodies can be healthy, and you should never tell someone what they can and can't do. And then I was like, I remember somebody sent me something recently after that. I'm pretty sure it was my friend Leanne, that was like, because there's this other component to it, not just that like he's pointing out my size, but also that like you should never ask a stranger if they're pregnant.
I hate that.
And I told a friend about this, and she sent me something that was like a graphic about when to ask a woman if she's pregnant. And it's got like those, like the stick figures that you usually see on bathroom doors. And there's like a stick figure, and then a stick figure with a little bump, like bigger bump, bigger bump, bigger bump. And then it's just like a woman with her legs open and a like head coming out of her like legs. And it's like just no on each one, like up until the last one. And on the last one, it's like, maybe ask if she needs help, like, but you don't ask if she's pregnant. And that guy didn't even ask me if I was pregnant. He immediately assumed that I was pregnant, and then I couldn't do some hike. And like, I had that countless times when I worked at the local gear shop, one of the local gear shops. People would come in and they would ask for hiking advice, and I would be giving it to them, and they like wouldn't believe me. They'd be like, can you point out the person who did this hike? And I'm like, sure, it's me, like, pointing to myself. I'm like, I did this. And they'd be like, oh, but you probably did it as an overnight. I'm trying to do it in a day. It's like, no, I did it in a day. I'm like, I mean, when I do a big hike in the day, I'm saying I start at like 4 a.m. and I'm back at like 8 o'clock at night. I'm not saying I'm like ripping through things in a day, but I have done really large hikes in a day, and like, people literally didn't believe me. And that's really hurtful. Like, as if a total stranger can look at me and immediately make some assessment of my capabilities, and then in their estimation decide that I'm a liar. Like, that's very hurtful.
Yeah.
And that like feeling is a feeling that has allowed me to connect to a lot of people that you have had on your podcast, like particularly Carla. I remember like Carla talking about this moment, like being with her family out, I think it was in Grand Teton, and like she has this moment of like realizing that other people are like looking at her family as if they don't belong there. And that connected feels like I can't fully identify with every part of her experience or every part of the experiences of people that you've had on the podcast, but like that feeling of like people look at you and instantly decide whether or not you belong there
Yeah.
is a feeling that I think a lot of people, no matter what they look like, thin, fat, like whatever, they have felt that at some point. And I think it's important for us to connect through that feeling, because
Yeah.
anybody who has really like spent time, you know, like in that discomfort, in that like feeling of being told whether or not you belong somewhere that is your home, or just in general somewhere that you like being, somewhere
Right.
where that you're happy, and then someone else decides that you don't belong there. And I think a lot of people have had that feeling, and we should be connecting through that.
Yeah.
We should be like holding on to that and carrying that empathy with us,
Yeah.
so that we don't turn into the people. I think a lot of people turn like discrimination against them into like hate. And then like we were saying, like where you like want to keep up with the miles, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you convince yourself you need to live up to this expectation, and then you judge people who haven't, rather than look at whether or not you're happy like trying to live up to this measurement. And
Right.
like, but I think that that point of connection is so vital, and is what we should be taking with us when we are outdoors, so that like if you're out on the trail and you like whoever you see, you should be greeting in the same way, unless they're like
Right.
fallen down
Yeah.
or bleeding, then
Yeah.
you should treat them differently. But like for the average person that you walk by, you should just be like
Yeah.
saying hello and beautiful day, isn't it? Like,
Right.
not, are you all right? Like, and I've been asked that on the trail, like when I've been like solo hiking, people have been like, are you okay? Do you need water? And I'm like, no, I brought my own water. Like, do you think I'm just completely
Crazy.
unprepared? It's, yeah, it's, I think that's a really important thing, and something I really wanted to make sure that I said today was like, we need to be seeing that common thread and holding on to it to stay connected with each other.
Well said. I as you were talking, I kept thinking about the moment that I remember I was like, oh, I really want Nikki on the podcast. And not only because we have great conversations, but I think it was one of the times, oh, remember we were doing our morning floats? We should bring that back next summer.
Oh God, yes, let's bring back the morning floats.
Well, for people who don't know what we're talking about,
we had root beer every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we used to go meet at a lake. Nikki would bring her kayak, and I would bring my stand-up paddleboard, and it would be like early in the morning. We would get up like pretty much sunrise, and then just spend like an hour or two together just floating around on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And one, it was great because we both wanted to use our devices and get on the water. It was a great way to also start the day, but it was nice to connect and spend time together. And I remember one of those times you had confided in me about what you were feeling in regards to your weight and your size. And I remember you said you had just had kind of this realization. You're like, I don't want to focus on looking a certain way or being a certain number when I weigh myself and I see it on the scale. I want to be healthy. Mm-hmm. That's like most important to me. I'm not going to focus on those other things, what my size is, what clothes I'm wearing, whatever that is. I just want to be healthy. And I remember thinking, damn, there's something to that, because there's so much. I'm part Filipino, and there was a lot of women in my family that if you were not a certain skin color, if I got too tan in the summer, it was like I definitely heard it. If I gained a little bit of weight, I definitely heard it. Like they were the first to comment on those things, and you don't forget that. No. Right? I actually had gained 10 pounds this year. I just went to the doctor, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been. And growing up, I always was very thin. And being a woman, it's so hard when our weight fluctuates and you're not exactly sure why. And of course, you go through the whole list of what am I eating? What am I doing? Am I not exercising enough? Am not enough? Whatever, all these things. And immediately kind of had a moment where I almost freaked out. And then I thought, oh my gosh. But I remember when you had said that, and I kept thinking, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on, am I being healthy?
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say thank you for giving me that, because there was always this, like, my value is, and I think so many women experience this, is attributed to, are you married? Do you have kids? You know, there's so many things. Are you considered like the standard beauty standards? Are you thin? And like whatever.
Yeah.
And that's something that I keep going back to. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind touching on that a little bit more, of like that shift of where you started, like you said, what happened at that one doctor who knew nothing else about you, that he saw you for 20 minutes.
Oh, it was
probably.
a she. That was a woman.
Even worse.
That was a woman
Even
who did that.
worse. Yep. You know, and that, it sounds like you've had a great physician. I'm sure that was a good foundation, but how was that transition for you of not allowing whatever people thought about your image, and when you look at yourself in the mirror or when you're trying on clothes, how are you able to focus more so on focusing on just being healthy? What was that transition like, and what kind of led to that?
It's a really good question. I think first there was a lot of unlearning. You know, similarly to you, and like growing up, and my family, or like even my mom would have like those similar comments about like size and how you look when you go out, and like I think I had to unlearn that, and unlearning that was like this process of understanding like where my mother was coming from. Like, my mother was raised in the South, and my mother is a very smart woman who was raised in a time where like girls could only be one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she has talked a lot about like, she wanted to be an astronaut, but she was like a 5-year-old in Alabama in like the 60s, and they're like, girls aren't astronauts. And so for her, this like talk about our bodies, it was like from this place of wanting the best for us, but the way, like, wanting the best, like, I think she wanted us to be seen as beautiful, and she wanted our lives like to be easier. And I think a lot of people think that like if you are typically standard like beautiful, you're beautiful by the typical standards,
Yeah.
that life is easier for you. And I think in some ways that's true in terms of like perception from other people, but and so I think that like understanding that that's where she was coming from, even though that's not how I heard it and that's not how I internalized it, like that understanding that's where she was coming from helped me unlearn it, because I was like, it's not a comment on my overall health. It's a desire to like want me to have all that life has to offer. And so I really had to unlearn that. And as I was unlearning that, I had like a few really key figures come into play. One of whom is my friend Eugenia. She is a beautiful human being inside and out, and she is a vintage reseller. If anybody is in Eugene, Oregon, if anybody is in Eugene, Oregon, you best go to the corner of Willamette and 13th and go see Wild Paisley Vintage, because she does beautiful work. She curates this beautiful selection, and she does try as much as she can to be size inclusive. It's interesting. She's told me, she was one of the first people I started having these conversations with. And she's told me that as a vintage reseller, it actually is difficult to come by vintage that is outside of like the typical mannequin size, because it is so hard for people who are curvy or just shaped differently to find clothes that fit. And so once like we don't let that go. Like we're not like putting it back out into the world of like, oh, maybe I should recycle my closet. Like if it fits well and makes me feel good, I am not releasing it back into the wild. And so she was like talking to me about that, but like she does really like, she has this really good eye for clothes. Like she helped me find my wedding dress. And like, and it's like she has an eye not just for like what will fit somebody, but what's like whether or not they feel good in it. Like I remember trying on dresses with her and she'd be like, I can tell that you don't feel good. Like because as I like was going through this process with her, even this was many years ago before the wedding dresses, it's like I would, just because something actually did fit, I'd be like, well, now I have to buy it. And she's like, well, do you like it? Are you ever going to wear this? Like, you don't have to buy something just because it fits you. And I remember I was shopping with her back in 2021 in the summer. And I was in this dressing room and there was like, we were at a thrift store and there were these shorts that I really liked. And I put them on and they didn't fit. And I was like, my first thought was, why don't I fit into these shorts?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a thought that definitely comes from like society. It was not my own thought. It was a thought that like society has given me. Why can't I fit into these shorts?
Right.
But then very quickly, I hear Eugenia's voice in the back of my head, or maybe literally outside the door, who knows? But I hear this voice and it's like, no, it's not why can't I fit into these shorts? It's these shorts just don't fit me. Like it is not a judgment. Whether or not an item of clothing fits my body is not a judgment on my body. It is just a statement of fact that those clothes are not the same size as my body. And it doesn't have to be charged. And so like she played a really big role in that. I know that you played a really big role in my feeling healthy because of the way that you and I like match when it comes to like getting outside. And it's like, if I was unhealthy, I wouldn't be able to do the things that we do. And like, so that was like really gratifying for me. And I also was doing EMDR therapy for many years. And my EMDR therapist, she told me that hiking, particularly if you're hiking with trekking poles, is a form of bilateral stimulation, which for people who aren't familiar with EMDR uses bilateral stimulation to help you process information and integrate it into your mind. And so my therapist, she was saying, she's like, if you're out there with trekking poles, like when I know you and I, we make up our little like trail songs and poems and things. And like, she's like, if you're out there, like making up little songs to the beat of your trekking poles, if you're out there with your trekking poles and you're thinking, I'm having such a great time, this feels so good, that bilateral stimulation is integrating that information into your body and brain and making it true. And so spending all that time like outside, like making up the little songs to the beat of the trekking poles, and to like just telling myself like, how gorgeous is it outside today? How lovely is it?
Right.
How amazing. Like every time I'm on a good hike, I am always thinking, God, it feels so good to move.
Right.
My legs and my feet are so happy right now. And that played a big part into it. And I think also like my husband played a big role in that as well, because when my husband and I first started dating, I was at the thinner end of my spectrum, and then I have since gone to the bigger end and been on this bigger end for most of the time together. And the way that my husband looks at me has never changed. The way that he responds to my body and like the way that he sees me has never ever changed. And so to go from this place of like being at my thinnest and then progressing to my biggest, and in those like during that progression, before, during, after, like the way that he has looked at me has never changed. And that has also given me like, just to have like, I respect the hell out of my husband and you and Eugenia, and like you three are very much like pillars and people that whose opinion I respect and value. And so it's like, okay, if I've surrounded myself with these badass, amazing people who I trust, and they're telling me like that I'm beautiful and that I'm healthy and that there are clothes in this world who will make me that will make me feel that way has allowed me to integrate it, has allowed me to go onto the trails and tap those things in and be at peace with it and to leave all that negativity behind, I think. I don't know. I say that now, but I haven't encountered a man recently who thinks I'm pregnant on the trail. So like, I'll have to circle back.
Yeah. Shout out to Edward. Shout out to Eugenia. I did want to add, with me also having gained weight this year, when I look at myself in the mirror, I don't see the difference. But I did just go shopping recently, and I was trying on pants at the new Marshalls.
Yep,
Yeah,
at
shout
the
out to
new
Marshalls.
Marshalls.
Bishop. We've made it, everybody. If you know, you know. R.I.P. Kmart.
You know what? I'm happy.
Like, how giddy I was walking through Marshalls, telling everybody, like, isn't this amazing? Is this amazing? And Jade was looking at me like, what the hell? Like, you don't get it.
Oh my God. I went in there for like
lovely.
all of our, like our work released the holiday festivities, like crazy sock day, crazy headband day, crazy sweater day. And I walked into that Marshalls and I got everything I needed in under 5 minutes and under $30. And I was like, big city Bishop. Okay, sorry. So
Big
you were
shopping day.
You were shopping.
Yeah, I was shopping there, shopping at the Gear Exchange, and just looking for new clothes in general. And I really needed new pants. And my pants at home weren't really fitting me anymore. And again, I didn't think anything of it. I thought there was something wrong with me.
Why can't I fit into my pants?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm just like bloated today or whatever. And they've just been so uncomfortable. I just haven't wanted to wear them. And I was trying on the size that I had been for a while. And literally I had brought in like armfuls of clothes to try on in this one size. And they weren't fitting. And I remember being like thinking, oh, this is because I gained that weight. I'm fat now, whatever. Just all the negative self-talk. But then I thought, well, why don't I try the next size or two up? See how those fit. And as soon as I did, I looked amazing in the mirror. And I was like, oh, there's my booty. Okay, it's not squishing on my stomach. I'm not feeling uncomfortable. These make me look and feel amazing. And then I thought about what you said that Eugenia would tell you. And I was like, it's not me. It's that those pants just don't work for me. And as soon as I found the size that did, I felt amazing. And I didn't care about that number or whatever. It's like, those don't even... Anyways, we can go on a whole nother rabbit hole about that. But I remember feeling so much better about myself once I changed my perspective. And it's all about perspective. I was wondering if there's anything that you could tell to somebody else who's experiencing what you're experiencing. What would you say to them? And I have something else to add, but that's why I ended it in that way. But I'll add something in a second.
I think I would encourage like somebody who's like feeling uncomfortable about their size.
Mm-hmm.
I would really encourage them to go for walks by themselves with no destination. Like just go for a walk and get to know your body. Like become friends with your body. Like before we sat down to do this, I was telling my husband, I was like, I'm so uncomfortable because I'm about to talk about something that like feels like this big secret that like we're not supposed to talk about.
Right.
But like, and because of that, like I think it's common for people who are not the classic athletic body type to like just shut it down, like, and just don't look at it. Like I remember I went through like 3 years where I just didn't look at myself in mirrors. And I think I would encourage that person to like go for a good meander outdoors and just think about how they feel.
Yeah.
I think that if you like open your mind to like talk to your body and see how it feels and then see what feels good and celebrate those things. And the things that don't feel good, like there might be somebody who they would be healthier if they had a lower number on the scale. It's like, but you can feel that.
Yeah.
And I think if you get to know your body, then you can really feel what you need. And that, like, now that I'm saying it like that, I think that is what led me to finally get my endometriosis surgery. was like knowing that I am healthy and knowing that my body loves to move in the mountains. And I was feeling this like immense fatigue, this like really big pressure. Like it would literally feel sometimes like there's like an invisible hand like smushing me into the earth. And I was like, this isn't my body. This isn't my weight. Like something else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now like I recently passed like the 1 year marker since having that surgery. And going for those walks, like getting to know my body, allowed me to be so certain that something else was wrong, that I was able to advocate for myself in a way that I couldn't before, because I didn't, and also shout out to all the other women who shared their experiences with me. But like I knew like I wasn't healthy, but I knew it wasn't my weight. I knew that something else was wrong. And since having that surgery, that feeling, that pain has been gone. And I'm still the same weight I was when they did that surgery. Like that hasn't changed, but that feeling has changed. And like I knew it, I could identify it because I went for like just out here by the house. Like there's a dirt road that like carves up the mountain, and I'll just like go take it and walk as high as I feel like and turn around. It's like, a hike doesn't have to be something that you plan and prep for. A hike is just a walk outside,
Exactly. Two things that come to mind from what you're saying. One is that quote from Yoga with Adrienne. Shout out to Adrienne. But she always says, find what feels good.
Yes.
And I always love that. And I think about that when I'm practicing yoga or I'm doing anything. It's like, okay, what feels good for me? What feels right for me? Am I uncomfortable or am I actually in pain right now? And just remembering to check in with my body. And if whatever I'm doing in that moment isn't working for me and it's actually hurting me, I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And understanding the differences. And I think that's going to lead to you also understanding if something's not right and medically you need some care. If you're doing those check-ins and spending that time with yourself, you're going to know.
Yeah.
And I lost the other thing.
Well, what you just said gave me something. Like when you're trying to find what feels good, I was saying like there is a specific like grade of incline that my body fucking loves. Like, and we find it most commonly out in the Benton Hills. We often like go out and just like go off-roading and just park somewhere just to go for a walk.
Oh, I love that area. Mm-hmm.
And that I find that like certain grade really commonly, and like I walk up that grade and I call it a leg stretcher. And I'm like, oh God, this is such a good leg stretcher. Like you're going out there and you're like having like a hiking orgasm. You're like, oh my God, it's so good.
This is it. This is like good stuff.
Oh, it feels amazing. And like that, and it's still a workout. Like it's still cardio. You're still going up there, but like there's this one specific like grade. I should actually measure it sometime where like that is perfect for me.
Yeah.
And then there's a higher grade that is a challenge for me. And sometimes I want that challenge, particularly if I am in a place where like I want to see something specific, then like I want that challenge. Right. And I want to like push myself in that way. Mm-hmm. And then there's like a certain level of grade where it's like, this is not fun. It's not fun for me at all. Like it's actually quite miserable.
Right.
And sometimes it's worth like overcoming it if you have somewhere specific you want to go. But if you're just like, don't do that shit to yourself if you're just trying to go for a walk.
Yeah. Like, of course, you're never going to enjoy even just going for a walk.
Yeah. You should enjoy going for in my opinion, so I should say that, in my opinion, a person should enjoy going for a walk and then use that to push themselves if they feel so inclined. But like you should push yourself because you enjoy walking and because you want to see something.
And as long as you're moving your body, no matter what that looks like, that is a win.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I remembered as you were talking, Joey says it's not a race.
Yes.
Whenever we're outside. And sometimes I'll push myself where I'm not comfortably breathing. And he's always like, it's just a walk. It's not a race. Like, we're not in competition with anybody else. We're going at our own speeds today. And like, if we make it to our destination, awesome. And if we don't, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we're just out here trying to have a good time. And as soon as it turns into not having a good time, it's like, why are we doing this then?
Yeah.
But I love that too, because he always says it's not a marathon or not a race, but I appreciate that too, because it's also allowed me to just meet myself wherever I'm at in that moment. You had mentioned unlikely hikers, and I was wondering, have you had or seen other examples of people who, I think, that you would feel like you identified with, or do you have other people that you've associated with your own experience as far as like what you've heard people describe on social media? Do you have other people that maybe people who are listening and feel like they can connect with your story, that they can look to those folks too, other than following you on Instagram if they want to?
What's interesting that you said, because like, I don't know. I mean, I can think of a list of people who aren't classically thin that I've gone on hikes with, but this particular subject of like talking about being chubby, talking about being bigger than the classic athletic body type, it's not something that I talk about. It is not something I think that most people talk about, because it's something that we'd prefer to ignore. Like,
It's a taboo topic, I think.
It's very taboo. And it's like, I mean, I remember one time, like probably 15 years ago, some guy telling me like that I looked really good even though I'd gained so much weight. And like, I do believe he meant it as a genuine compliment, but it didn't matter. And like, he just commented on my weight, and that stung. And so I don't like, unlikely hikers gave me vocabulary, it gave me confidence. But I can't say that I like have gone hiking with someone or spent time with someone and discussed what it's like to be chubby and outside. And it's like, I can think of this one woman who like came into the gear shop where people used to think I was lying about hikes. And like, I remember talking to her about it, because I was like helping her, and she was an older woman, super comfortable in her body. And she, like, I was helping her find the right clothes. And like, we talked about it, but I haven't like I have never comfortably had a conversation about my body size until today. Like this podcast, this moment. I mean, I guess like I've had them in bits and pieces with you, in bits and pieces with other people, but I've never like talked about my body as the subject comfortably. I'm sure there are lots and lots of people out there, and I'm sure that they would be easy to find. And unlikely hikers is still somewhat active. They're just not active in like a like a building a brand kind of way anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen them post in a while. So when you said that, I thought, oh yeah, I remember finding that page a long time ago. Two people come to mind for me. That's Lizzo.
Oh, hell yeah.
She's been very vocal about her size, and also like shutting any judgment down and just owning it.
Also, can we talk about how much shit she's gotten since losing weight? She gets shit for being fat, and then she gets shit for losing weight.
And then it's not that from what I understand, it didn't seem like her intention was to lose weight. I know she changed her diet, and then she's definitely been trying to be more active and healthier. So I don't think that was her exact intention. It was like, I just want to be thin. I think she just wanted to be healthy from what I had gathered.
It also like doesn't matter. God, like I remember listening to a podcast of hers like in like the 2018, like when that one album was just blowing up. And she was on somebody's podcast, and they were talking, it was some NPR podcast, and the person was asking her like, oh, like you're naked on this cover, like what does that feel like? And she just basically like, in a very, very polite way, but still like very much like ripped into this person. And she was like, would you ask me that if I was skinny? Like, you're just asking me that because I'm fat. She's like, I'm just a like fat black girl out here trying to sing and play my flute. Like, why? Like, you think like, and she would say that often in interviews. She's like, I'm not a representative of every fat person to ever exist. I am just a person who's fat. And it's like, and now like that she's lost weight, and it's like people are like, who's gonna represent us? Like, she never pretended to represent you. Like, she was just doing her and encouraging everybody else to do
place
them.
her as that.
Yeah.
But we like to do that. I mean, I think everyone likes to do that with any category. Like, who is our champion for this?
Oh yeah, we love to make our own idols and then just cut them down.
Exactly.
America.
And the other one I think of, the other person is the Mernovator. I think that's what her Instagram is.
I just started following her.
She's so awesome. But same thing. It's just like, she's like, I'm who I am. I like skiing. I like running. Like, this is what I like to do. And of course, she's also kind of, she's so badass.
That woman is strong.
So strong.
And
just
now,
some stuff that she does, I'm like, I couldn't do that.
Now you like cracked it open for me, and now I'm thinking about all of these other things. Like so the Mervinator, there's two men out in Colorado. One is Fat Black and Getting It.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen him. No. He's a black man and identifies as fat, and he's just like out there crushing the trails. And then there's another guy, he's a white guy, and I cannot remember his Instagram name right now.
Do you remember later? I can put it in the caption.
Yeah, I want to say that it's like Fat Man Little Trail or something like that. Like the Tommy Boy. I'd have to look it up. But those two I really like. And then there's like this surprise third one that I found recently. Her name is Kendra Underwater. And like nothing on her Instagram is anything to do with like her size, but she is not what I think that most people would classify as an athletic body type. But she is a like free diver, scuba diver. She lives in Florida, and she runs and she does all of these things. Like that woman, again, like the Mervinator, like so fucking strong. And she doesn't like say anything about her size on her Instagram, but like it's definitely like something that I feel inspired by. Like, oh, this other woman that's like super curvy, she's out there crushing it, and like at least to my perception isn't thinking a thing about what size she is, you know.
I hope she doesn't.
Yeah,
she doesn't have to.
No one
makes her feel that way.
I hope she never does. I'm not a person who ever like reads comments. I'm not someone like when people talk about living in the comments, I'm exiled from the comments, self-exiled. I never read comments, so I don't know if that stuff's in the comments. I often don't know that there are shitty comments on people I like's posts until they like do a post about shitty comments. I'm like, who would say this to you? But I've been trying to get better about being positive in the comments, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the comments.
Yeah, you never know what you put out there.
Edward can do that. Edward's a keyboard warrior. I can't do it.
On a final note, if there's anything that you like, let's say in like your perfect world, what would you like to see change in the outdoors in regards to the topics that we've touched on today? And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be about body positivity or acceptance, whatever that is. But if there are any things that come to mind, like, I don't know, 2 to 3 things, even if it's just one, what would you like to see happen differently in outdoor spaces?
I would like there to be a common greeting for the trails. You know, I'm personally a big fan of "Hi, how are you?" I don't care if you answer me or not. Like, I've said "Hi, how are you?" and people say "Hi, how are you?" right back to me, and we're like, done. You know, like a standard greeting that is like acknowledging somebody else out there, but not like commenting on them. Like, if we can standardize one thing, can we just standardize like, do not comment on women's bodies or anybody's bodies? Like, don't be, honestly, if you see someone out on a trail, unless they are bleeding or exhibiting signs of injury, don't ask them if they're okay.
Yeah.
Like, I was seeing that something like that recently on Instagram that was like a person, or no, it was Unlikely Hikers did a post recently, and she was talking about like a group hike that she did, in which like one of the guides, like, she was in the back because she also like walked slow, and he was like following her the whole time, like checking in, are you okay, are you doing all right? Like, don't ask people if they're okay. Like, don't assume that someone is not okay because of their size. Let's like let people be.
Yeah.
And I think something else would be like, if we could say anything to outdoor clothing retailers, it's like all sorts of shaped people like want to go outside and like allow for that, allow people to have hips and want to go outside, allow people to have bellies and want to go outside, like allow, because outdoor clothing makes a huge difference. Honestly. It is a huge difference when you are out there in like actual hiking shoes versus like the Nikes that I was trying to do the trail in that I talked about earlier. Like it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I do think that outdoor clothing is moving in a direction to be more inclusive. But even like, I remember like ski boots, women's ski boots are still based off of men's body types. And men's calves start a lot higher than women's. Women's calves go a lot lower. And so like that's another reason why I don't really like skiing is like I have big, huge calves. I have calves that love to go for a walk, and they are the part of my body that I probably love the most. And I have gotten 2 beautiful tattoos on them to like really like reinforce like I just absolutely love my calves, but they are massive. And I cannot get it like a ski boot that fits me.
Yeah.
Like, and also being flat-footed, that doesn't help. But yeah, I think God, I'm not answering this question very well.
You are.
Yeah, just like don't make assumptions about people, and also like know yourself. Like I have one friend who's a good friend of mine. She does not like to hike slow. We don't go hiking together.
That's okay.
We've done it before and like had a good time. She's never given me like smack about going slow. She's always gone like at my pace, but she prefers to really get out there and go fast. And so like we go outside together, we go float together, we do not hike together. And it's like, so know yourself and know what you want and what you need, and share with like people who are similar to you. Because if you can recognize something, I feel like this ties into like other topics we've talked about recently. Like if you can recognize something like this just isn't the right space for like the two of us to be in together, then you can say, okay, let's find another spot that we can be together. And she and I have found that spot because she knows herself, because I know myself. And just like I was saying, my friend Emily, like she knows when she wants to go fast and when she wants to like get out and like do that. And she's going to do that when she wants to. When she wants to hike with a friend, she's going to hike with her friend, and she's not thinking about the pace. So I think that's the biggest thing is like know yourself and love yourself. Like you hear it all the time. We get one life and one body. And people like to say life is short, and I think that's true, and I think it's important, but I also think we need to acknowledge that life is long. Like, yes, it can be over in the blink of an eye and you didn't do all the things you could think that you wanted to do. But life can be long. Do you want to spend 30 years hating your body? The body that carries your soul and your spirit and your mind, the body that carries you from place to place, the body that you live in? If you're not intentional, no matter what your size is, no matter what you look like, no matter who you are, if you are not intentional about loving your body, it's not going to happen on its own. And you only get the one, and you have to live with it for your entire life. And this world is hard enough. And there are jackasses on the trail who are going to tell you what you can and can't do and make assumptions about whether or not you're with child. And you have to go up against those people. Why do you also want to go up against yourself every day when you wake up, every night when you go to sleep? You get your one body, and it is beautiful. It is beautiful no matter what. And maybe it needs some more exercise. Maybe it needs some more rest. Maybe it needs less weight. Maybe it needs more. You will not know what your body needs if you don't love it with everything you have. And like, I think that's, oh God, I'm gonna cry, oh God. But like, that's the part that like, that I have come to terms with. You can't love your body, but like, oh, I don't like my stomach, right? You can't love your body, but oh, I don't like what my chin does. You have to love every single fucking cell, because it is all you. And if you're saying, oh, I like my body, but I don't like my chin, you're not loving your body. Like, and we have to talk about ourselves and talk to ourselves in the way that we would talk to other people. And one thing that I found that helped me immensely was I started doing this thing called toothbrush affirmations. That's what I call it in my head, which is that, like, you know, you're supposed to sit there and brush your teeth for 2 minutes. It's for 2 minutes, 4 if you've lost. 4 minutes, you're sitting in the bathroom, like, staring at yourself in the mirror. And you could choose to, like, disassociate, which I've definitely done. You could choose to wander around and pick up the house while brushing your teeth, which I also do, which is very odd. But, like, I do try to take those 4 or 5 minutes and intentionally look myself in the eyes and tell myself nice things. And sometimes those things are huge. Like, can you believe, like, you know, I'm an adult education teacher. Sometimes, like, I look at myself and I'm like, you helped somebody cross the finish line today. Like, that's an incredible thing that you did with this person. What an amazing thing you were just a part of.
Right.
Some days it's, you made it to the sink and you're brushing, like, good job, you know, like, taking those 5 minutes a day to just look yourself in the eyes and say hi. Like, you are the only you that you get, and you are the only person that is in your head at the end of the day. Like, nobody else can think for you, or, you know, like, those things are important, and I think it gets lost.
Wow. This is an amazing conversation.
Thanks. I was going to do a mic drop, but
I was going to say after that, I almost wanted to tell you your mic drop.
These are not my microphones.
Are there any last things that you want to say that's, like, heavy on your heart before we close out?
Yes, but it's odd. I realized about, like, 10-15 minutes ago, I realized when you asked me to introduce myself, you mentioned pronouns, and I didn't say them, but not because I don't like to say them, just because I'm nervous and I forgot. Okay. So my name is Nikki Rayhart. I use she, her pronouns. I really want to do that. I did not like that I skipped that part.
Okay.
I think sometimes people who are bigger find it hard to, I don't know, if anybody who's bigger has been through similar things to me, like, find the people who really love you and stop trying to earn love or earn approval. Because if somebody is making you earn love and earn approval and earn your place, you are never going to earn it. Someone who makes you work for that is never going to award it to you. And it's so important to find the people who accept you and who love you and who want the best for you, but are not going to come up with their own standards by which to judge you. And I think one of the most beautiful things in our friendship is that we don't do that to each other, but we know each other very well. And we have, both of us, like, had moments where we've been like, I know that this isn't what you want to do. I know this isn't who you want to be. And that's a different thing. I'm not saying don't have people who challenge you. Like, do not allow someone else to design the ruler by which you measure yourself. Because that's a them problem and not a you problem. And life is both too short and too long. Like, do you want to spend 50 years trying to be somebody else's view of perfect? Or do you want to spend 50 years loving the shit out of yourself?
Man,
yeah,
you're full of zingers. You're full of good knowledge.
I'm really glad I stopped, because I said that last thing and I was like, I could get, like,
you're like, okay,
R-rated with this.
Well, Nikki, thank you for being on here. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and sharing your experience. Like, I know for certain, at least, you're not alone, because I have felt similar things that you've shared with me. I just wanted to add that one thing that we can't see on the camera very well are your amazing legs. You do have amazing legs. So,
we can't see them on the camera. Just you
see the
wait.
calves. You're getting the calves in there, but yeah, your legs are amazing.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You're one of my favorite people for sure, and I'm so thankful to know you. So thank you so much for being on. Thanks for being a special person in my life, and yeah, I think that we could definitely go on for days on this topic, on these topics that we've covered, but I feel like we've covered it pretty well, and I'm so excited. I feel like I learned even more about you today, and I'm glad we like held on to have this full conversation so that we can share with others.
Oh yeah, because you mentioned this like before the wedding.
Yeah,
like back in May.
Yeah,
and in the time since May, in the last 7 months, we've kissed the conversation.
Yeah, we keep dancing around it. We're like, oh no, we're not gonna touch it. We're not going there.
Save it.
We're saving it.
So, yeah. But thanks for thinking of me. This isn't like, it's not something I would have ever assumed that like I would be on your podcast, which like, the part of me always wanted to, because it's a great podcast and because I love listening to it. Although debatable if I'll listen to this one, because I don't like listening to my own voice is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I guess I need to learn to love it and take my own advice.
Exactly. All the parts of yourself.
But I really have enjoyed this, and I did, like, I know I've mentioned it a couple times in the podcast, but just to like, I would really like to end on this note of like, if people like me are listening to this podcast, like there's a lot of people who could be very educated by your podcast. Like, you say like you can't go around like ask your friends to educate you, but take advantage of people who are putting information out there to educate others. And I think that part of your podcast is doing that, as well as like giving this representation that's so important and giving a microphone to voices that need it. But if somebody is listening to this, and is a white person wondering what the heck this white girl is doing on your podcast, like, find those things in you, like, that connect to these stories that you are hearing, and like, let that empathy guide you. Like, everybody has those moments where they feel like they didn't belong, where they feel like things weren't quite right. Like, I encourage anyone who's listening to your podcast to educate themselves, to listen to all the episodes and find those moments and let that open your mind and open your heart to this connection that we are all humans and we are all beautiful and we are all just here trying to get outside and love our lives, and allow that connection to lead you to greater understanding. I feel like I should look at the camera for that.
That's definitely going to be, I'm using that as a real promotional clip.
Good. But that's something I wanted to end on, and I hope I think I said it a few times. That was a big goal of mine coming on here, was to help people find that point of connection. So
yeah,
thanks for having me.
I definitely, for all of my guests, I don't know if I look similar to most of my guests in person, I guess physically. On the outside, there are so many parts of everyone's stories that I felt seen and heard in, and that I felt connected to. And I think just the conversations that we had, I thought, man, I know this isn't a one-off. I've had these similar conversations, especially with other women. A lot of us have had those experiences where we're feeling judged by our appearance, whether it's good or bad. And I think that was like the biggest part that I wanted to touch on today. And I think we explored that and then some, and I just appreciate you so much. Thank you, because I think that you'll be surprised who you inspire by just being yourself and sharing your story. You inspired me so much, and I know that's going to happen with people who hear this too. So thank you, and I love you.
I love you too. It was lovely.
Nikki, Thank you so much for being a guest on Black and Wild, the podcast. I truly appreciate your vulnerability and transparency with what your experience has been like in life. Some takeaways I have from our conversation are to place an emphasis on my mental health and overall well-being by listening to my body rather than focusing on my size or weight. I want to be more intentional about loving my body in all of its parts because the world is already placing enough pressure on me. And through that, I will find people who really love me and accept me as I am because I've set that standard. For the listeners, I hope out of all of Nikki's advice and tips that there is a part of her story that resonated with you too. The world is harsh enough, so please take care of yourselves. Do the things that make you feel good and bring you joy because we all deserve it. To find more content from Nikki, follow her Instagram, Hearts and Crafts, at hearts, HARTS .and.crafts 2025, where she focuses on selling potted plants and her many crafty creations. Don't forget to also check out blackandwild.com for all things Black and Wild. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoy the additional hours of daylight that we are now experiencing. Happy Pisces season. Much love, Deja.